Why can I hear the light? It's okay, we've been here before. Carry on the light, they won't know it hurts more. It's okay, we've been here before. Carry on the light, they won't know it hurts more. It's okay, we've been here before. Carry on the light, they won't know it hurts more.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the HP Podcast, episode number 297. I'm Ben, and with me here today are two of the most beautiful boys you've ever seen in your entire life. Brandon, we'll start with you because you look a little better than you did about 3 minutes ago.
Yeah, I sat up in my chair.
Well, no, it was your lights were so bright that you were the sun.
I know. My pale skin is so reflective and translucent at points. I don't know how it almost doesn't seem possible, but the light was bouncing off me in such a fashion to where I almost became neon. And so I had to tone it down a bit just to not blind the viewer. The
Very
audio,
considerate of you.
yeah, I mean the audio listener is safe. But the YouTube folks not so much. So we're
Do you think there is a brightness that transcends the visual medium into the audio medium?
I would imagine. Do you know that black that's like so black it absorbs all colors?
I think that's all black.
Yeah. Well, no. There's
No,
literally
that's all white.
there's a black that is like. Chat, help me out here. You know what I'm talking about.
Vanta black
Yes,
or something?
yes, exactly. The opposite of that is what you're describing, Ben. It would transcend the visual medium and go through the ear canals, I think. Black absorbs light, dude. Thank you, HH. A beam of knowledge, as always. A beacon of knowledge.
Creates a rainbow in your ears is what you're trying to say.
I think so. I'm not a scientist or like a physicist or whatever that might be. I'm not a light guy. I'm not an electrician, so I'm not any of those things. I'm just Brandon.
Fair.
Yeah.
Dave. I don't I don't even know where to begin. How are you?
I'm good. Had a bit of
good.
a weird day today. I cried today, fellas.
You did?
When's the
dude,
last ti- Brandon, when's the last time you cried?
I cry like many times a week.
Many times a week. Good for you.
Yeah.
Ben, how about you? When's the last time you cried?
Uh, do tears coming out of my eyes count if it's not from sadness?
If it's like a cold or something, then no. It has to be produced from sad or happiness. Maybe a happy cry, that too.
That's even rarer though.
I'm gonna say it's definitely been this year, but I can't pinpoint the moment.
Okay.
Like, definitely, I'd say almost 100% within the last 3 months, but I can't tell you why. I can't
Typical
remember.
male. Typical
Yeah.
male.
I was crying a lot this week because of my eye was infected. But
Right.
so that didn't
Yeah.
count.
No,
So.
that doesn't count. But I cried because I dropped my daughter off at daycare for the first time.
Oh no.
And it was only for two. It was the first day, so we just did like 2 hours. But even then, like when I turned to leave, I was like,
no.
I am gonna ugly cry right now. I
Baby.
didn't like it was. I got in the car and it was pretty good. But yeah, big moment, weird day for sure. But it's the start of a new era, I guess. Back to work.
All was well though. Is
Yeah,
it going
no,
well. Okay, good.
everything was good. She did
Good.
great. I mean, we'll add like an extra hour every day, and by next week we'll be on full days. But the question is, will it be easier tomorrow when I drop her off? I feel like I'm prepared, but we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, because you've been off work for a little while, and you've been with her basically all day, every day for a while.
Yeah. So from February all the way through to September, I was.
Is it because you're nursing, Dave? Are you nursing your child?
Yeah. So when I would feed her bottles, I would kind of hold her in like that boo position, so because
Yeah.
I wanted to feel that connection, you know.
Right.
Right. Shirtless. They say that's actually good for the kid, legitimately.
Yeah, as soon as she comes out, like when you're a newborn baby, like the dad needs to take his shirt off and just do the skin to skin contact.
Yeah, that's good shit.
I did that right after almost fainting.
Yeah.
I didn't think that would actually happen.
Almost, Dave. Give yourself
Yes.
credit.
You persevered.
Almost.
You persevered.
You fucking gritted your teeth through that shit, and you were there to hold that baby
I
shirtless.
clutched up, as it were.
Dude, every orifice in your body was clenched to make that
I
happen.
rolled creds on birth giving.
Without blacking
Solo grandmaster vaginal delivery.
out. Was there a post-credit scene?
A little timer on in the corner.
Trophy pop?
Yeah, something popped.
Brother, in the chat over here, we got Benji Bop still talking about the paint and the Vanta Black. That was 8 minutes ago. We got done talking about that, brother.
Ben, I can't believe you don't know about this black, though. Look it up.
I
It's
do.
actually-
I do. I am aware
all right,
of that
all
part.
right,
Yeah.
all right. You kind of look like you're absorbing all light in your background today a little bit. It's like, did you paint the walls in Vanta black?
Maybe. You know how sometimes you have to play dumb in order to like continue the joke?
No, I think I just am dumb. So
Well-
I don't play it. I just live it, Ben.
So the whole
You just
the
get to
whole-
conveniently be dumb. I just
No.
live this all the time, Ben. Okay. Oh, how convenient for the sake
Unironically dumb.
for the sake of the joke. Ben's playing dumb. This is how I live. Okay. This is my culture, Ben. Okay.
good appropriating my culture. No, I don't. I'm not gonna say I always do that. There's definitely sometimes that I don't know things, but the whole black and white thing, I knew that, but I was like, oh, I'm just gonna perpetuate this for the sake of Brandon's joke, and then the problem with doing that is then people are like, you're so stupid. You didn't even know black and white, and it's like, okay,
You didn't even know. I didn't know anything.
Thought he was doing it again.
I didn't know what he was gonna do. Tom says, does that mean if OLED TVs get even blacker blacks, then collectively and eventually they'll absorb the sun? No, Tom, because they are TVs. That is impossible.
I don't know, man. We sent a man
Also-
to the moon.
Did we?
Anything is possible.
Flew a helicopter on Mars.
Listen, I'm pretty sure we went to the moon, but also every time someone says, we've been to the moon, I'm like, did we?
Anything is possible. If you know
Because
what I mean.
I'm pretty sure I wasn't there.
Dude, are you calling that old dude Armstrong, whatever his name is? Neil, Lance, one of them.
What if he imagine this? I don't think that's a conspiracy, but I love conspiracy theories, so I'll like get in and examine them and stuff. What if Neil Armstrong even thought he went to the moon? What if they drugged him or something?
Dude, After
That's a theory.
after MK Ultra, I'm convinced anything can happen via the CIA and the government. Look it up, people.
Are we then assuming that, like, if the moon landing was fake, are we then also assuming that, like, all the stuff we're doing on Mars and, like, the Russians taking pictures on Venus, was that all also faked? Because I feel like if we could do those two things, then the moon landing wasn't that far-fetched.
Yeah, but that was also 70 years ago. We could barely fly 70 years ago.
Yeah, but some of that stuff happened, like the Venus thing, that happened 70
Yeah.
years ago.
They took pictures of it, you mean?
Yeah, that was in the
Sure.
70s or 80s.
Yeah.
So are we suggesting that that is also fake?
Mm,
I'm not saying you're suggesting that, but
I'm
but
not
the
suggesting any
deniers.
of it's fake, but what I am suggesting is that anything could be fake.
Okay.
We don't
Dude,
know.
dude,
And you have to
Brandon-
assume that if
Brandon-
something
Is
if something
Brandon
was
cake? Is that what you're suggesting?
if something is faked on that big of a scale, you have to assume they would want to eliminate as many potential leaks as possible. So why wouldn't Armstrong have been tricked into thinking he went to the moon? Too.
Dude,
You
I'm-
Would have
know?
been a good approach. Definitely.
I'm telling you, bro. Anything is possible.
Okay, here's the one thing I'll say about the moon conspiracy.
Operation Paperclip.
Operation Paperclip.
Don't forget about it.
There's people, including my boss, who say, "Oh, you can see if you get a strong enough telescope, you can see the moon landings. You can see like our lunar landers and stuff there." But that's not true. You can see the areas where we say we went to the moon, and I believe we went to the moon. But in order to have a telescope that could actually detect the size of a vehicle on the moon, the telescope would have to be a quarter mile long. They've actually like made this math. So you can see the areas where we went. You can't see like the vehicles and the flag and all that kind of stuff. So that's like if you're gonna have a discussion with somebody who's like, and who says the moon landing wasn't real, and you say it is real, don't use that because it's not true.
Okay, hang on a minute. I just need you to explain something to me. So we have telescopes that are strong enough to detect black holes like billions of light years away, but we can't see a moon buggy parked on the moon. Is one like what's the?
Well, there's a
I'm missing
difference.
something here.
The black holes, you're seeing the effect of the thing rather than the thing itself.
I understand. Okay.
And,
Whereas-
and also, some of the telescopes are like in space, like the Hubble Space Telescope. So like they're already halfway there. You know what I mean? Maybe not
true.
half. Maybe not half. But
I don't know about half, but yeah.
they're already out of orbit. You know what I mean? And then is the Hubble was the old ones? What's the newest one that had all those really awesome pictures like last year?
I don't remember. But
You
I
know what I'm
you're
talking about? There was some insane, like high res compared to like in the 80s or wherever. I just sound like a complete moron. I don't know that much about space, but the pictures are night and day. Like to be able to see the same planet in such a higher resolution almost makes some of them look completely different.
Yeah.
But that was last year. That was really dope.
I gotta clarify. I think this is all real. I think we did the moon landing and stuff.
Yeah.
And I regularly go back and look at those Venus pictures because I think it is absolutely insane that we have pictures from the surface of Venus
Yeah.
and it looks just like it does.
Wait, not from the surface of Venus. Of
Yeah.
the surface of Venus, right?
Yeah. Wait.
Okay.
What's the difference?
Well, from the surface of Venus means that they were taken on the surface.
surface. And
They were.
Oh.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I've
it's-
seen like the close-ups.
The,
Dude, I
it was
gotta
called
look this
like
up.
the Venera project in the
Venereal
70s or
project.
80s. It was Russian. And yeah, they landed a thing and it got to the surface. It took a couple
Oh.
pictures and then it burned up. So
Yeah,
those
I
are
see
actual
this.
pictures from the first surface of Venus. It's crazy.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I have
Yeah.
seen these. Yeah.
This
Yeah,
is
yeah, I
like
know what you
some
mean.
No Man's Sky type shit.
Big time.
Yeah.
Big time, big time, big
that
time.
was-
14 minutes in and we've talked vaginal delivery,
Mhm.
Van to Black, and space conspiracies. We're doing good today. It's not a slow news week either.
We're doing the Lord's work, actually.
Okay, one more thing. Derek says you can reflect lasers off the equipment. Yes, I do understand that.
You
But
can
the
reflect
difference
the
is-
lasers?
I understand that people say that. I've never seen it. That doesn't mean it's not true. But the thing I'm getting at is if you cannot get a strong enough telescope. We have not invented a strong enough telescope to see the lunar lander with a telescope.
God
It
damn.
doesn't exist.
Is it true that Venus has the Breaking Bad filter on it?
Maybe that's the conspiracy. Is it wasn't actually Venus. It was just Tijuana.
It was just Mexico,
Yeah.
Well, they say that the conspiracy theorists would say that the moon landing was actually filmed in the desert. You know,
Dude, like the Red Hot Chili Peppers, they say that in that one
Do
song.
they? Do they really?
Oh yeah.
Hmm. And
The
what's his name
Peppas.
filmed it?
Spielberg.
The crazy filmmaker that's no longer alive.
Al Gore
Yeah, it was Al Gore. Al Gore went to the moon and
invented the internet.
Mhm. Oh my God, this is the HP podcast. We talk about video games and faking moon landings. I don't think any of us believe the moon landing was fake, by the way.
It's kind of fun to believe.
It is a fun thing to entertain.
I'm just
like-
blown
I-
away that we can't see the stuff on the moon. I did not know that.
Yeah, I think you can see the effects of it. You can see, apparently, you can see reflections. Although I don't know if anybody's ever actually tried that. That's not like in the government, you know.
the government.
But you can't. There is no telescope that can actually see the equipment left on the moon. I'm not saying it's not there. I'm saying stop using that as an argument when you're telling people that we actually went to the moon, because it actually weakens your argument. My God. We also talk about video games. We do that in our Discord sometimes, from time to time, over at handsofphantom.com/Discord. You can hang out with us there and join in on the shenanigans. I hope there's a lot of moon conspiracy talk this week, because I love getting into that stuff.
Me too, man.
And you can also support us over on Patreon at patreon.com/handsomephantom, where you can sign up for as little as $1 a month and get every episode ad-free and early on audio. You can check us out live Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. on YouTube, or however you're listening to us right now. However you're doing that, you can just keep doing that. That'd be great. Some more comments here. 17 minutes in, we haven't even started talking about episode 1 of The Penguin. Well, there happens to be a brand new podcast about the Penguin. From my
Word on the
understanding.
street.
You can find it on the Ben and Sansom channel. Is Ubisoft dying?
Mm-hmm.
I need
Their
you
stock
guys
certainly is.
I need you guys to give me your preferred way to say the word of this company, and I will say it that way for the rest of the show.
Okay, give me both options just for posterity.
Ubisoft and Ubisoft.
Ubi's more fun. It's like
But
ew.
what would you prefer that I use? What do you say?
I say it probably different every time just because I like to be aggravated.
See, I do too. So it doesn't matter.
Fuck them.
This is like 4 different news stories in one. But the gist of it is Outlaws, they just revealed it only sold about 1 million copies, which for a lot of games would be really good. But this is Ubisoft, and it's Star Wars, so it's really bad. X Defiant has fallen behind expectations. Assassin's Creed Shadows, they canceled all the press views of it, and they delayed it. There's an investigation into the company, and like doing an internal investigation of what's going on here. And also their stock price is maybe, I think, the lowest it's been in years and years and years.
Buy now.
So there's 4 or 5 different articles I gathered here. Where do you guys want to start? This is a more free-flowing news topic, all right?
Dave, in like memoriam, I feel like you should probably you have the most respect and you were the closest to this person before they died. I would like you to go ahead and lead this conversation.
They're not dead, but they are dying.
I thought I made it clear last week that I'm a Nintendo shill. And
Even old friends, it's one of those things, even if you're not as close as you used to be, you spend a lot of time with them. You know?
That's fair.
A
I still do like Ubisoft, and there are still plenty of games I'm looking forward to playing, including Outlaws. I don't think they're dead. If you guys remember, a similar review took place. I don't remember how many years ago it was, but it was around the time that Ghost Recon Breakpoint came out, where there was a full review of the company's release strategy, and that's when they started to move away from annual releases of a lot of their franchises, even though Ghost Recon wasn't an annual release. But I do have to point out that Ubisoft taking this approach is probably a good thing, because we have seen a string of commercial failures for Ubisoft: X Defiant, Skull and Bones, which is no surprise, and Outlaws. And Ubisoft is the kind of company that is at the mercy of its stock price. And Yves Guillemot, you know, he'll come out to trade shows and he'll talk real nice to gamers and say all the things we want to hear. But at the end of the day, he answers to the shareholders, and that's just the kind of company that Ubisoft and a lot of the other big ones are. So, you know, I think this needs to happen, but it would take a lot to kill Ubisoft. And I think something that's started to hurt Ubisoft is it's become known as the company that applies a deep discount fairly quickly. And I think a lot of people looked at Outlaws, and a lot of people aren't making much money right now. That's another thing that can't be ignored here is this game is $100 in Canada, and that's for the standard edition. That's with, you know, no extras on, and it's $100, and people aren't making much money right now. So I think Ubisoft can get away with some soft sales on Assassin's Creed Mirage, and then, you know, applying a $20 discount 2 months in. They can get away with that. But I think the license acquisition for Star Wars Outlaws immediately makes that a different can of worms for Ubisoft. So maybe they will have a discount around Black Friday, but it's going to take a lot more to recoup their money back for something like Outlaws. So I think they rolled the dice on this, and ultimately it to this point hasn't paid off. But as we know, Ubisoft games have a pretty long tail, so this could turn around for them. But I think now is a good time for the company to do a fulsome review of what they're putting out there, because, you know, they've been known as the company who has, you know, the formula, and all their games are the same, and, you know, they sold really well, but it's at some point you kind of got to start to iterate. So yeah, I think now is a good time to do this, and I think the Shadows thing was a smart choice. I think it wasn't going to sell very well this fall, and it will do better in February, but yeah, I don't think Ubisoft is dead. I think they're just kind of recognizing that their stock price is starting to take a hit, and that's what drives this company. So, yeah.
Yeah. Brandon, your thoughts on the whole situation?
Yeah, I mean, this is certainly interesting. I think that Outlaws was kind of marred with a piss poor reception for a couple different reasons. I think some of the lacking technical issues and maybe some of the mechanical issues out the gate kind of harmed it. I also think there was a lot of strange discourse around Outlaws that didn't have a lot to do with the game and had more to do with like social things, which kind of just put a fog over it in general. Unfortunately, because I don't feel like that really speaks for the game itself. I feel like the stuff I mentioned prior does, but not necessarily that. So something that I find interesting, and something that we talked about last year, or maybe at the beginning of the year, was that XDefiant was in a good position because they needed to launch prior to this year's Call of Duty. Okay. They were in a good position to kind of prove what they had this year prior to the big boys stepping back in. We had talked a lot about how Call of Duty seemed to kind of be on a downward slope. You know, they're still on top, obviously, but they had a chance to kind of scooch in and maybe corner some of that market. And to see that it's behind expectations, although that is vague, because I'm sure they expected it to do very, very well, just like most of these earnings calls and everything do. But I would hope that they would continue to iterate, because I think XDefiant will do significantly worse in 3 weeks. I would imagine numbers will fall off sharply, even for a premium game. That's the power Call of Duty has in this space. I think even for a premium game, numbers are going to drop for them.
The rumor is they've given the development team to the end of season 3, which I think would be sometime early next year, to turn that around. And if it isn't, then it's going away.
So, which is unfortunate, because I don't know, being a part of that team has to be really scary right now. Especially, you know, what did we talk about a week ago? The highest retention numbers of any beta, the biggest numbers of any beta. I'm sure we're, you know, as soon as Call of Duty launches, within 24 hours, we will see a 10 million, you know, whatever, because it happens every year. And if the numbers for this year's Duty show anything, it's that XDefiant is shaking in their boots. And I really hate to see it, but I would not be surprised if this game does fail after this. If it's already on a downward slope, Call of Duty will put a nail in its coffin. I guess to kind of speak on Ubisoft generally, I find the whole Shadows thing to be very strange. I don't necessarily disagree with Dave that it will sell better next year, but I'm also not convinced that that'll be the case either. I really don't think a couple months, what is it, 4 months difference will make any at all. I think this game will do the exact same no matter what, because the majority of development has happened, the majority of hype has happened, and unless they put more money into PR, or I'm sorry, not PR, advertising, I really don't see anything changing that much. So I don't think Ubisoft's dead. I'm just poking fun at it a little bit. They might be like critically wounded. But yeah, this is definitely strange. And I think that at some point, Ubisoft is probably going to have to look at what they have and maybe just like, I don't know, does it make sense that they downsize at some point? That we continue to see a bunch of jobs be lost, that they maybe sell off a few IP to kind of keep the studios going. I don't think that's the worst thing. I would rather see that than Ubisoft stop existing or be gobbled up by Tencent. So, yeah, I don't know. That's kind of my take. And, it's maybe not the brightest one for Ubisoft, but I hope they continue because they do have good IP. They just haven't always made the best choices. So,
Yeah, I think your point about I think whether they were doing poorly or not right now, I would think this would be a good idea. They have over 23,000 employees across all 6 continents. And the reason that all 6 continents, or not all six, there's 7, but across 6 continents, the reason that matters is because it's not like you just have one building that you have to maintain with 15,000 and another one somewhere else. They've got many, many, many different places that they also have to pay that overhead for. So
right.
I'm not saying that's the whole source of their problems, but the amount of games they're putting out, they need a lot of people, but I don't know if they need 23,000 people. That's a lot. And I'm not saying I want people to lose their job, but 45 studios just for Ubisoft's games that they're putting out, a few a year, I'm not sure if that's wise. I think it's just bloated at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think they're dying, but they're definitely in a tough spot here, and it's decision time for them. They're going to have to figure out some stuff to do. They've been around a long time. They'll probably continue to be around a long time. I wouldn't be surprised if somebody does a hostile takeover kind of thing and figures out a way to buy the remaining percent they need for ownership, because right now the stock is so low. And I'm wondering if that was like the corporate idea there. If like we put out another game and it doesn't perform super well, it's got a lot of heat on it right now because there's woke and anti-woke interest and whatever. I don't even know because I don't care to follow all that stuff that much, but everybody's upset about it for one reason or another. And the Assassin's Creed Shadows. So I think if they didn't delay it, that was already going to be haunting them. Plus, on top of that, maybe it did need some bug fixes and stuff like that. But for them to go and they have to cancel their pre-orders in order to delay it, that's tough because I imagine their pre-orders were lagging. And then when you cancel them, even the people who forgot they pre-ordered it now might not redo their pre-order. So that's a little bit rough as well. But all in all, I think that it's really tough, a tough spot. I think they have too many things going on. I think they need to divest, perhaps. I don't usually advocate for layoffs, but I think there's some layoffs in order for a giant company like this.
It's going to happen.
And
Like,
it's going to happen whether they want it to or not. Like, if they don't lay off some people, a lot more people are going to lose their job, in my opinion. And then X Defiant, hopefully it survives, but when you've got 20,000 concurrents on a free-to-play title that's a shooter made by Ubisoft, that's 20,000 max concurrents, by the way. That's a little rough. So I'm hoping that they can turn that around because it seems to be great, but I hear zero buzz about it. The last time I heard someone talk about it was, and I'm in this space, I'm in the shooter space. The last time I heard someone talk about it was Dave when he played it like a month and a half ago or whatever.
Have you heard people talk about the finals? Because I haven't. Apparently, that game's doing fine.
I've heard people talking about the finals recently because they just launched season 4. I haven't seen anyone I follow playing it or anything like that. But some people, I've seen people talking about it. The thing about the finals is it's a much smaller team than Ubisoft, right? So like, they need less money to keep it alive. I think to continue production on it than Ubisoft needs for X Defiant. That's just like speculation and guess, but yeah.
Would
But
you
yeah,
say-
it seems like one of those games that's dying. It
Yeah.
seems like it, but apparently it's not.
Would you say there's too many cooks?
Well, too many cooks would imply too many people telling other people what to do, and from some of the reports that are coming out, it's that there aren't enough. There isn't enough organization.
There's
And
not
sometimes
enough
that can-
cooks.
You don't hear
There's
about
not- yeah.
the that sort of, you hear the too many cooks in the kitchen coming from Microsoft all the time, and it's like they're so unorganized. Like, you don't really hear that about Ubisoft, but just to reiterate what you said, Brandon, and you sort of went over it too, Ben, is they have a lot of studios all over the world. As Grabalicious said in the chat, Ubisoft Antarctica is going to open by the end of the year for Rayman reboot.
I
But
wish.
like if they just like focus a little bit more, and like the Assassin's Creed series sells really, really well, and Shadows will sell really, really well, and Mirage sold, I think it was 4 or 5 million units by January. That's before it really had a major discount. Maybe it did, but like their games are still selling well, and people want to buy them. It's just like there has to be that semblance of focus and quality, and I think they've just started to lose that. So they just got to look at the people, the diehards. They gotta find the gamers who platinum Skull and Bones and really ask them, how should we move forward? Call me Ubisoft. I'm here.
Oh shit.
It is interesting that the whole thing with Star Wars Outlaws, and I know that people didn't love it at release, and there were some technical problems with it, as there are with any game, but especially Ubisoft lately. But you're right, Dave, about that licensing cost. There is no way, and I don't pretend to know what that licensing cost is in terms of dollars. It could be $1 million, it could be $100 million for all I know, but it's definitely
A lot.
something, right?
Yeah.
It's something. For them to have tanked that so hard, I think Outlaws is a game that will be looked upon fondly in a year from now. I think the people who end up playing it fully are enjoying it, and they're making a lot of changes to the game that are addressing some of the core complaints. Now, of course, that wasn't done before the game released, so you have your beginning, your early adopters really hating it, and those are the people who are most diehard about your company, most likely, or Star Wars. But I think a year into it, you're going to see a lot of people who are like, oh, they changed a lot of stuff and it's better. Or, oh, I bought it for $30 on Black Friday and I thought it was great. So I think that's going to be a game that's looked upon kindly in the long run. But yeah, selling 1 million copies of any Star Wars game, let alone one from a major publisher, is rough. That's really rough.
I do have to say one thing about, I don't trust that number.
No?
The way it's written in the article and some of the other stuff that's said in the article, I would not take that at face value just yet. And I'd be curious to see if Ubisoft does come out and actually give us, this is how much we actually sold, because you're right, 1 million on any Star Wars anything that's really soft. And there was a decent amount of promotion around this game around launch time. So
Yeah.
the other thing the article says is in, I don't, maybe I read all the good reviews and maybe I saw the positive coverage, but I do not recall this game being negatively received. I know there were some issues around some technical stuff or whatever, but yeah, I don't know. There was a couple things in this article that, and the insider gaming article, that made me raise my eyebrow a little bit. But yeah, I would be really curious to see numbers directly from Ubisoft on Outlaws, and I think now's a good time to come out with those.
I want to say it averaged like Meta, or I don't know if it was Meta or OpenCritic, that it was like around the 73-ish when it released, which, hey, that's a decent game. But I think the fact that it
Pretty
was
good game.
now in our society, if something's not a 9, it's trash, and the fact that it's a $70 experience and it's Star Wars, and I think that hurts it a lot. But I think that a lot of people did not actually, when they did play it, it wasn't that it was a bad game, it was that it was not what they wanted. Like, the stealth was very one note from what I understand, and there was a lot of it, and it wasn't optional. I think that's a lot of
75 on OpenCritic. I go with that because it's a single
75.
platform, but
Yeah.
and strong OpenCritic ratings. So
Yeah.
I don't know how that's a negative reception, but maybe I
Yeah.
missed something.
Well, I don't think it is a negative reception to people with a brain, but I think when the average gamer looks at it and it's not Elden Ring score, that's just where we live now. Like, that's people. It's all about perception, and in fairness, if you have $70 to spend on a game, and you choose from a 75 or you choose from an 82, you're going to pick the 82, unless you're super into Star Wars. Which actually takes away every argument for away from why this game should possibly be doing poorly, because it's Star Wars. It should be doing well no matter what. So you might be right. Insider Gaming is typically a pretty decent source, but I don't know this author, and there isn't a lot of actual sourcing here that's mentioned. So you may be right, Dave. It may not be worth paying attention to. Christopher Dring, is that somebody from Ubisoft? Who is Christopher Dring? He's a journalist from gamesindustry.biz. That is a source I trust. Said Outlaws sold half as well as Survivor did in the first week. Survivor didn't sell very well either, from what I understand, in the short term or in like the beginning term. So I don't know. Either way, sucks. Hopefully they can get their shit together. One way or another. I'm gonna get you. Get you. Nintendo is one of our favorite topics on this show, as is emulation sometimes. Brandon, are you moaning?
Yeah.
Okay. This article comes from timeextension.com, and it's just one of many articles I found on the subject. It says Nintendo is famously protective of its intellectual property and has a history of suing content creators who feels it has overstepped the mark. However, the latest move feels particularly heavy-handed as it has issued copyright strikes against a YouTube channel that reviews emulation handhelds. Retro Gamecore, in case you didn't know, is an excellent channel with over 500,000. The commentary on whether it's an excellent channel is theirs, not mine. I don't know anything about the channel. With over 500,000 subscribers, which covers many different retro gaming systems, but its main focus is modern-day portable devices from the likes. I don't know these companies. As you might imagine, many of the systems run games for consoles like the NES, SNES, Game Boy, N64, and even Wii U, and the channels do a great job of showing off how they perform, etc., etc. However, Russ, the channel's owner, has recently had a video taken down at Nintendo's request, which relates directly to the emulation of its products. Russ says that he's considering filing a counterclaim under fair use, as the video was for educational use, transformative in nature, and had no effect on the market. I'm going to skip to some of the rest of it. They have repeatedly done this to many other creators in the meantime. They have shut a lot of others down as well. And then today I saw, this is a totally different area, but I saw that they had also come to some agreement with one of the big emulator makers. Was it Ryujinx? No, Ryujinx was the one they shut down last year, right? I'm looking here. Yuzu, maybe? Another one. They shut down like the other big one that's out there right now. So I just want to talk about Nintendo once again. First of all, emulation, I understand. It's a very gray area sometimes. Some people say it's okay if you own it. Some people say it's not, whatever. But it's not like this guy was teaching people how to... Maybe he was. I don't actually know. But he was playing games that were modded. Not modded. Running on an emulator. Dave, Nintendo Defender. No, I'm just kidding. Tell me how you feel about it. You're always taking the heat, man.
It's funny we start off with Ubisoft and we go straight into this. I feel like whenever these stories make headlines, Nintendo is in some part looked at as kind of a villain and kind of an antagonist with how hard-nosed they are with going after people who use their IPs in ways that they don't like. And maybe you could argue that the definition of what they don't like is a little unreasonable, but I mean, I don't have a problem with what Nintendo is doing. I think I don't really know too much about these emulation devices or the handhelds that these creators were getting struck for, but if you're promoting a device that is made to play what I would consider stolen software, then I think it's reasonable to expect that somebody has an issue with it. Let's be clear though that if Nintendo puts a striker claim or whatever it's called, and then YouTube takes that video down, that creator's issues with YouTube. It's not with Nintendo. YouTube at the end of the day is the one who makes the decision about whether that gets taken down or not. Now you could argue, well, YouTube is it's maybe not scared of Nintendo, but it's abiding by Nintendo because it's Nintendo. But that's still YouTube enforcing its own rules. So I think that is, direct a little bit of the blame at YouTube if you have an issue with this. But I don't see an issue with Nintendo protecting its IP. And if I think, contemporaries like Sony and Xbox or Microsoft don't really do this kind of thing. And I think that's another reason why it looks so bad when Nintendo does it, or it looks so antagonistic. But again, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I do also need to mention that I think Sony isn't 100%, or sorry, Nintendo isn't 100% innocent here, because part of the reason why this is such a prevalent issue, and we've talked about this before, is how bad Nintendo's been at preservation. People have to, pirate and emulate your games because it's so hard to get some of the older ones. So if you kind of address that, I'm sure people would be happy to buy your older games directly from you rather than having to get them by more nefarious means. But I mean, at the end of the day, I don't have an issue with how Nintendo approaches these things. Yeah, I'm not ironically trying to be an apologist for Nintendo. I just feel that way.
The rebuttal I'll give there isn't necessarily about the issue. It's about the part you said about it being on YouTube's back as well a little bit, because YouTube is just DMCA compliant. And when someone files, does DMCA relate to all copyright or just music? I can't remember for sure. Regardless, there are laws, and they are a compliant organization, which means that if they have a claim that has validity, and in this case, the validity is that Nintendo owns a property featured in the video, that they're bound by law to take it down. It's not necessarily that they made a decision or not. It's just that's their policy. That's their policy because the law makes that be their policy. That if until it's proven that it's not. So really, it's a battle with the courts, and nobody has ever actually successfully taken Nintendo to court and said this was not a violation of copyright because Nintendo has more money than everyone else combined. But, Brandon, what do you think? I know you hate Nintendo, but put away your bias just a tad and approach it. Even if you still, come out against Nintendo here.
Yeah. I think for me, it's pretty hard not to be against Nintendo, even with all of my biases in this case. I didn't watch the video itself, so I guess I can't make an incredibly informed decision on whether or not this was.
And now you never will be able to watch the video.
Right, exactly. Whether or not it was like morally wrong for them to make this. But based off of things I've seen in the past, I think that they like to tread the line between what they should and should not DMCA. So that makes me think that even if it was something that they have no right to get taken down, it's possible that they did it anyway. So I don't know. Dave made a good point. The other big guys don't really do this, which strengthens even more of the case that Nintendo is the boogeyman as far as this goes. I understand they are a company and they are a business and they need to protect their IP, and I don't think that's bad, but if someone was showing someone that they can put, they weren't advising people to steal, I would bet you any money. And I can't say that for sure, like I said, but what people do with information is up to them. And I don't think that should be illegal if that's what happened in this case. So, I don't know. Yeah, I'm trying not to hate on Nintendo, but it just feels like they care so much when they have so much. And that seems kind of weird to me. And to that, you might say, well, Brandon, the reason they have so much is because they care so much. And to that, I would say, I don't think that's mutually exclusive. I think Nintendo would be just fine if, I don't know. Maybe it's a slippery slope. I get that, but it's very nuanced, and I'm kind of minimizing it a little bit. But I don't think things like what is reported here are necessarily the problem. I think when people pirate the game that Nintendo just put out for full price, I think that's a problem. But if someone's trying to play a game that's 25 years old and they want it to have a better frame rate or be able to play on a TV that's 1080p or something, like that doesn't seem like a problem to me. So
just, I want to point out that this Retro Game Core, I don't work for Nintendo, but I think this is important. This Retro Game Core guy has links to buy these devices in his description. I think that's an important point there.
Yeah, this specific one I agree with. And that's what I was going to say is that this particular channel, I mean, the first video they struck of his, from what I'm reading, or what I read earlier, was basically a video about how to dump your ROMs onto your computer in order to be able to emulate them. Now, dumping ROMs from a cartridge you own and playing them for your own use is legal. But are people doing that? That's the thing. If you're teaching a bunch of people how to do this, now granted, that video, maybe that was educational, whatever. But teaching how to people do that, I understand why they would want to come and say, hey, you can't do this. You can't show people how to emulate, even though the emulation itself is legal, because most people don't use it legally. I don't really know how that all works out. I think the reality is that most people don't have the money to fight Nintendo or the willpower, so a lot of this stuff goes by the wayside. But my bigger issue is with Nintendo is that, and with a lot of companies, is that they use DMCA type takedowns as a battering ram. They use them as a threat, as a way to scare people into not making content that they don't want made. Recently, a game I love, a company I love, Rare, copyright struck a creator who they had banned in 2016 from the game. Now, you could make the argument that because he was banned, he shouldn't have been able to be making content. But the reality is he was banned from the game as a user, not from making videos about the game on YouTube, an entirely different platform where he was not affecting anything on the other thing. And so they effectively used that as a battering ram to get him to stop playing the game, because if he can't make content from it, then of course, and if he can't make money from it, he's not going to continue to. And Sailor makes a good point. He was arguably the largest Sea of Thieves creator at the time, as far as YouTube goes, that is. So, if he can't make money, why is he going to keep playing the game? And that's really what they wanted, was for him not to play the game. He was a kid and did some really stupid stuff, but the reality is he did get banned from the game, and they use it as a battering ram in order to DMCA him 5 years later. So all that to say is that I have a big problem with Nintendo doing stuff like that, where they'll literally go to Twitch streams and copyright strike Twitch streams of people just playing their games because they don't like the person. And that is documented. That is known that they've done that. So that's my bigger issue. I think it is important. You do have to protect your copyrights. And if you take something to court that's a real thing, and it turns out you didn't protect your copyright in this other instance, then that actually goes against you, as we've talked about on the show in the past. The court can say, well, you didn't do it here, but you're selectively choosing to enforce your copyright. So I understand that they have to be consistent, but I just don't like the precedent it sets that, well, if Nintendo fights you, you're out. You're done. You have no chance. If this creator specifically was making a video about how to dump your ROMs that you own, that is educational. That is educational of a legal thing. Is it used for illegal things most of the time? Absolutely. Probably 99% of the time, to be quite honest. But should that video have been able to be struck? No, but if Nintendo claims it and this guy doesn't have enough money to combat it, Nintendo wins. So, I don't know. I don't know how to feel about it. And I don't know everything about this particular creator. He could have been doing really shady shit otherwise. But the reality is Nintendo just beats the shit out of people all the time. What are you shaking your finger at?
Nintendo.
Oh. And I love them, and I'm waiting on a game to come tomorrow, and I'm going to buy the Switch too.
Chill.
How do you deal with that?
Let's
How do you
go.
deal with that internal struggle there? Speaking of internal struggles, let's talk about digital games again for the 9 millionth time. There is a new law. I got to pull up the article here. This article is from PlayStation Lifestyle. It says PlayStation Store might be forced to admit players are licensing games. A newly signed California law will force digital storefronts to tell its customers it's licensing rather than buying a digital good. It is licensing rather than buying a digital good. Presumably, digital video game storefronts like the PlayStation Store would be affected by this and will have to convey that its players are licensing games that could be revoked if the seller no longer holds rights to the product. When the law goes into effect next year, digital sellers will be restricted from using terms like buy, purchase, or any other term that conveys the customer or the consumer has unrestricted ownership of the purchased digital good unless the seller clearly states that consumer is purchasing a license for the product. If sellers do decide to use terms that suggest the purchase is being made, they will have to either obtain acknowledgement from the customer that they are purchasing a license to a digital good that can be revoked at any point, or provide a clear statement before each transaction that the digital good is just a license along with access to its full terms and conditions. If you break that law, you'd be subject to a fine for false advertising. And then they say, to put it simply, digital storefronts that do business in the state of California now have to admit its customers are purchasing a license, or at the very least, spell it out plainly for customers that they do not have unrestricted ownership of the product, and it could be taken away. And this is something we've talked about many times, and I know that a lot of people are like, digital versus physical. That's an argument, of course. It's still a license, by the way, whether you get it physically or digitally. They can still prohibit you from playing it, even if it's physical. And we also know that when you buy a game, you're really buying the license. Things get delisted all the time. They get taken away from your account, etc. The stuff from the History Channel that you bought goes missing, whatever. But for them to have to disclose it, I wanted to talk more about the business angle of this and how they do this. They'll probably bury it in a big thing of legalese. But at that point, a lot of lawyers are going to be coming out and looking at these and making videos and posts and everything else like that, updating people. And does this affect Sony and anybody else, for that matter, that has to make these things disclosed? And do people care? Brandon, we'll start with you this time, since we went to Dave first since he's the Nintendo show.
Yeah, no, I think it does matter, and people will care. I think that most people don't really understand how games work. The majority of people, I would imagine that any of the people in my life that play video games don't even really know that if they buy a disc physically, they're really getting nothing for the most part. So I think we have a huge disconnect coming, that where the way things used to be and the way things are now sometimes appear the same, but they are not the same at all. It used to be you could pop the disc in at any point 20 years later and you could play the game. But that's not how it works anymore. And ownership is fleeting and next to impossible. So it kind of makes me realize the importance of sites like Good Old Games, where you can actually own the shit that you buy. But will it affect most people?
And just to point out for a second, Brandon, sorry, Good Old Games explicitly states that you are not licensing it, that you actually own it, and the files for the game are in a zip in the download that you get
Exactly.
to enable you to install it later. Which I'm actually not sure how that's legal, that they get that permission to do that, but they do. They state that clearly. So
Yeah. So that's actually something that is really important. Check out Good Old Games if you don't know what that is. But no, I think that they will find a way to make this just ambiguous somehow. I know that it says that it's going to have to be explicitly outlined, but they will come up with some sort of PR. It's going to say get or something. You know what I mean? Something that is vague enough to where people aren't even going to second guess it instead of buy. Like,
or they just take away the word before the $79.99 or whatever it is.
Right, or just press download instead of whatever. It's just they're going to find a way to make it not matter. I think that the legislation is interesting and it's sound. A lot of people bitch about a lot of the legislation, and a lot of times the consumer forward legislation is not from this country. So to hear that something that would benefit a consumer is coming from a state that is in our country is good. I think this will affect all people that sell in California digitally, which is all companies for the most part. So yeah, I don't know. I would like for there to be a big change to where people could be educated on what they're actually spending money on. But do I think that will actually happen? No, I do not. I think it will be veiled just like it's veiled now, because they're not explicitly saying it, but it's for a reason, because they don't have to. And so they're going to get around that any way they can, because it's not a fun conversation to have when somebody spends $70 on your game and you say, well, if one day I want to delist this, even if you spent money on it, it's not going to be there. Most people don't get that, and I'm positive of that. So yeah, it's definitely a weird thing, and I don't like it. But that's just the world we live in now. So,
Dave.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, Brandon. I think this is a step in the right direction, but I do think ultimately this is something that's going to be buried in terms and conditions. It's too bad because it did this move did kind of touch on something, which is the use of the word buy or purchase, and I think if there was some sort of like class action lawsuit that prevented distributors from using that word, I think that would really be the change. And that would force, these companies to go in one of two directions. One, just outright stop using the word buy or purchase and use the word rent or license, whatever you want to call it. Or they would, take a step back and actually start giving us games that were 100% accessible offline. Obviously without things that need connection to some server. But the other thing that you touched on, Brandon, that I wanted to say too is, the three of us sitting here talking about this and the people listening, like, we are very knowledgeable about this kind of thing, but we are not representative of the average gamer. And the average gamer, somebody who maybe hasn't turned on their PS4 in several months, goes to flick it on one day and can't play their copy of whatever, which they bought on sale on the on PSN, and that kind of person just isn't going to understand why this sort of thing is happening. So they're the ones that are really suffering. We kind of know the risk that we're taking when we buy something digitally, and I think it's going to take a lot more than whatever prompted this to see real change. So I don't mean to be pessimistic, but I'm kind of with you, Brandon. I don't think this is going to be enough. This is going to be, a footnote in fine print and nothing really more. And we'll keep buying the stuff. So we're not really forcing these companies to change yet. So I think it's going to take more. It's going to take a lot more.
You mean we'll keep licensing this stuff, Dave?
Yes.
How dare you not disclose that? Good thing you're not in California.
Yeah, good thing.
Yeah, we'll keep buying it / renting it / whatevering it because we don't have another choice if we want to play it. So, but reality is that maybe not as in depth, but that language has been on video games since early 90s, I want to say. So we've been licensing games for a long, long time. Even before digital games were a thing, we've been licensing games. Let's go to the next story. And this is just about Remedy because I like Remedy and we talk about them a lot. And we talk about Tencent a lot as well, which we don't like a lot. This comes from game developer .com. Alan Wake and Control developer Remedy has entered into a $16.7 million US convertible loan agreement with Tencent. Remedy said the loan will carry an 8% annual non-cash interest rate. Studio CEO said the move will strengthen Remedy's position in the value chain and give the company more control over how its projects are commercialized. As we move towards self-publishing, this financing will support us in developing and fully realizing the potential of the games we have in development and successfully carrying out the commercial activities of our next self-published games. It's worth noting that Tencent currently has a 15% stake in Remedy already and first invested in the company back in 2021. I wanted to bring this up not necessarily because of Tencent, but a little bit to talk about the fact that how did they not make any money on Alan Wake 2? We let the industry as a whole let them down because that was a good game. And this isn't one of those, oh, this game sucks, but I liked it, so it's a good game. People love that game. That game won awards. And it didn't make its money. And they're having to borrow money from somebody else. And yes, you could say that they're just investing in a bigger project. They need more money to make it happen. That's probably true. But it sucks that they don't have enough money to make that happen on their own without having to get, 8% annual. That sucks. Brandon, you wanted to speak up there. I'm happy to let you do that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm in agreement with you. I think that games like Control, games like Alan Wake 1 and 2 were all incredibly, looked on incredibly fondly. But once again, I'm going back to the whole general public idea. I could probably ask my brother or my dad, who are very casual gamers and have played hundreds of hours in the past years in games, and say, do you know what Alan Wake is? And they say, oh yeah, didn't that game come out a really long time ago? Or my friend had it, or like, that's just the thing is, even though these games are really good, I'm not saying they're not good. I don't know that they're like as mainstream as they would need to be. I think that would answer your question as to why they need a loan. Not because the game is not quality, but we've seen this time and time again with games is that you'll have a good game like Dishonored, like, there's lots of examples, but like it just doesn't reach the audience that it should. Now, I don't know that that's because of the game. That could be because of many things, but that's kind of what I was thinking when you said that, Ben. I just don't think that the IP is as broad in scope of the amount of people that know about it and that play it. Now, that's not to say that it couldn't be, but I just don't think it is.
I think the reality is you're right about the average gamer, but I think even hardcore gamers, a lot of people didn't play this game. I think that's proven just by the fact of the sales numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I agree with what you're saying generally, but
Yeah, I mean, and I guess to kind of go back, I'm sorry to kind of cut in twice in a row here, but yeah, I mean, obviously we don't like Tencent. I think that that's a lot of money, and I hate that they're taking it from the people that they are. I know that this is in an effort to become independent, and that's what I want for Remedy because I feel like that's the way. Um, I just hope it doesn't turn south for them because that is a lot of money to kind of go back on. They're gaining momentum. I don't want to seem like a naysayer. They are gaining momentum, and I feel like it could be crucial. But this is a very interesting place to get money from, as far as I'm concerned. And I guess it's better than being acquired.
yeah. Dave, do you have any thoughts on this before I break into some more thoughts?
Yeah, I'm looking at this a little bit differently. I think if Remedy just wanted to continue on as they have been for the past couple of decades, if they just wanted to make some more DLC for Alan Wake and eventually give us a Control 2 and then maybe do something else for Alan Wake or a new IP, I think they could do that without getting into these partnership agreements with Tencent and Annapurna. But I think this move just reaffirms that Remedy has some pretty big plans in the future. And I will admit that a partnership with Tencent, with the interest rate that you mentioned, and it's a convertible loan agreement, which means that they can convert the debt into shares of control of the company, not total control, but more control. That makes me a little bit nervous. On the other hand, they have kind of diversified this a little bit. So they have, this loan agreement with Tencent, but then they also have this partnership with Annapurna. I think the Annapurna thing is a little bit less financial and more for creative production and distribution. But at least they've kind of diversified who they're dating out there, which is a good thing. In any case, I think the market for video game TV crossovers is pretty hot right now, and I think if anything could work well in this sort of medium, it would be stuff from Remedy. So I'm excited to see where they're going. I'm not crazy about the Tencent thing, but I think this is less to do with we need money to keep us afloat and more to do we have some really big plans and we need to get some more financial backing in order to do those things. And yeah, just to echo what you guys said in Edward and chat, like Remedy is niche, but they could hit a home run on the silver screen with some of the IPs they own. So I'm excited to see where they go with this.
Yeah. I saw somebody say that, oh, what do you guys, why is it such a big deal? It's only $16 million. And I want people to remember that, like, Control was made for under $40 million, I want to say. So, like, it's a large chunk of a game that they could potentially make with this. Now, of course, like you said, they want to keep moving. So it does seem like moving up and bigger and better. It does seem like a small amount, but I just don't like that it's with Tencent and that it is, as you mentioned, Dave, that it is has a fixed conversion rate as well at such a low price, in my opinion. But I just think that the other thing I was going to address, some people in chat were saying this, and I know I see it all the time elsewhere. People always want to say that, I didn't buy that game because it was on Epic and not on Steam. And I understand that. I don't agree with it because I'm the guy who's like, well, where is it? I'll just click that button and go there and play it. But I understand if you have a preference for where you play things. People have had preferences for which console they liked forever, and now people have preferences for which internet stores they like. So I get it, whatever. But the reality is, I don't think that that's the biggest part of the market that I'm talking about too. Like it came out on PlayStation and Xbox as well. It came out on Epic, and Epic basically paid for this game to be made. Like I think they confirmed at one point they essentially funded the game for it to be an exclusive. So there's a good chance they would have made even less money had they not gone with Epic to begin with, and maybe the game would have done better, but Remedy might have been in a worse position, even if they had had more sales because they would have not had funding for the game. So I don't really know exact, what all the contracts say and what the dotted lines are, but I think there's more to it than just it wasn't on Epic, that's why it didn't, or it wasn't on Steam, that's why it didn't sell well. That's why it didn't sell some. There's some people who that's the case with, but I think that it didn't sell well anywhere, let alone just not on Steam. So I don't know. I don't know what to do about it, but hopefully this all works out for them. They've already been in partnership with Tencent for a while, and it's worked out well for them, apparently, or else they wouldn't have done this alone. So hopefully it continues to go well. The train is coming. Oh, go ahead.
Because the train's here, just in case
Yeah,
you didn't
train's
know.
here. I do know. Dave, why don't you talk about what you've been playing?
Sure. Jumping right into it. No lube. I like it.
Ooh, bite the pillow.
Ben, you've beaten Cuphead, right?
Correct.
Brandon, have you beaten Cuphead?
Hell no. I'm bad at that game.
Okay. So 66% of this podcast has beaten Cuphead. 'Cause
Okay.
I beat
Okay.
Cuphead.
I see you. I see you.
Finally.
33% of it has also beat the DLC.
Yeah.
Bruh.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't matter. Nobody's worried about
Bruh.
that. It's funny you mentioned the DLC though, because last week when we talked about the DLC, I was like, no, if and when I finish this game, I'm done with it. But as soon as I finished it, I was like, it's only $12.99. I kind of want to play some more. And Ben, if you can assure me that there are no King Dice-esque boss rushes in the DLC, then I think I'm a buyer. Do you recall?
I don't think there's anything like that,
Okay.
but it's also been since the week it came out that I played it, so I
Right.
can't guarantee that.
But yeah, so I beat the devil. He was a lot easier than I was expecting, and I kept thinking about it throughout the week. Like, man, I finally beat that game, and it's a video game. It's so stupid, but I'm like, there were so many times where I'm like, I am gonna delete this game. I'm done with it, but I just kept pushing through, and that felt pretty good. So yeah, done with Cuphead. I also got Zelda, Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom on my Nintendo Switch. So I've been playing that through the weekend, and it's good. It's quintessentially Zelda, which is wild because I feel like they've done so much in the past few iterations of the game to really rock the formula. Like you think about weapon degradation in Breath of the Wild and getting away from traditional dungeons and then just kind of iterating on that in Tears of the Kingdom. And then you have Echoes of Wisdom where number one, you don't even play as Link, and number two, you can't really fight anything with a sword or an arrow or a hook shot or anything like that. So you take away such a major piece of the game and replace it with something else, granted, but it still feels quintessentially Zelda. Like, I'm just kind of in awe at this franchise for how it manages to keep recreating itself, but still feeling so right. I don't know if I'm really saying that in the most eloquent way, but Ben, I know you've got your copy coming, and you're probably going to be talking about it next week, so I'm excited to hear what you say. I think one of my favorite things about this game so far is again, I like Tears of the Kingdom and I like Breath of the Wild, but I did find myself yearning for the more traditional dungeon feel, which is what you get in this game. Smaller dungeons where there are prescribed sort of, I wouldn't say prescribed solutions because that's the other piece of the game, but yeah, it's just they feel like much more traditional dungeons, which I like. You start out with the forest dungeon, and then from there you can go to Gerudo or the water temple. And yeah, it just feels really good. The game looks great. It's the same sort of plasticine art style that we had from the previous Zelda on the 2D top-down Zelda, or the top-down Zelda on the Switch. I keep forgetting the name of
Link's
it.
Awakening.
Link's Awakening. So yeah, and
You played
I
that
think,
one, Dave?
Sorry?
Did you play Link's Awakening?
I
the
did
remake?
not play that. No.
You should play that next.
And I think where this obviously differs is, rather than using a dungeon tool like a hook shot or, magnetic boots or something like that, like you just have this this inventory of echoes that you can summon anywhere you want, anytime you want, as long as you have enough power to do so. And there's been a number of times where I've found a solution to a puzzle or a problem, or just getting up to a ledge. And once I did, I'm like, I could have done that 3 or 4 different ways. But I just chose this way because I wanted to play with this tool, or it was the first one that came to mind. So I think it's cool that it's kind of got a Tears of the Kingdom-esque design to it, where you can attack problems a number of different ways. So I'm really enjoying that. A couple of things that I'm not too crazy about. Number one, it runs like shit, especially when you're in the open world. Brandon, I was kind of moaning about this on your stream a couple days ago, but yeah, somebody in our Discord was like, I think I want to wait till Switch 2. And honestly, like, if you don't need to play this game at launch, assuming the Switch 2, this will be backwards compatible on it, that's not a bad idea. I don't think it ruins the game, but it is noticeable how much the frame rate dips in the open world when you start to, like, I find myself walking around with like an army of keys. Those are like the bats, and which is great. It makes me like almost invincible. But when I do that, there's a noticeable frame dip. So it's yeah, I'm ready for Switch 2 because this thing, I can't fathom, I can't understand how this thing ran Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild. It's just crazy. But yeah, Greek, don't say that on our thing. We might get struck by Nintendo there. But yeah, the only other thing that I wouldn't say is something that I don't like, and this is the piece that I'm really curious to hear Ben talk about next week, is I need to unlearn what I normally would do in a Zelda game or a game like Zelda, which is when I come into a room with enemies, my first reaction is to run up and whack them with the sword or pull out my bow and arrow and hit them. And you can't do that in Echoes of Wisdom. You have to attack situations differently. And there is an adjustment to be like, okay, how am I going to do this? Which echo can I summon to best deal with this enemy? Can I sneak by him? Because there has been times when the easiest thing to do is just to summon a bunch of enemies and then just hide in the corner of the room and let them take care of it. And that's kind of boring. And I know there's more creative ways to deal with these situations. And I think I just kind of need to get accustomed to that. So
what I'm hearing is that you assume, since you're playing as a woman, that you should be not able to fight. That's what I hear you saying.
Actually, I'm glad you mentioned that, because it's important to note that you can turn into like this echo form of Link and fight stuff, but that's really limited, and you only want to use that in certain situations.
Oh,
and
so again, you need a man. I get it.
Yeah, what you really want to do is
they're not teaching good. They're not being good role models for children here.
Okay. So yeah, that's kind of where I am. But overall, I'm really enjoying the game. I'm glad I picked it up day one, and yeah, I'm excited to see, Ben, how you feel about it. Assuming you've played a decent chunk next week, but yeah,
I'm excited to play it. I was irritated when my Amazon order was going to take forever, but now this last week it's actually been good that it wasn't here, because it would have distracted me even more than I was already distracted. So, Brandon, you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so I've been playing more Vampire Survivors. Honestly, just a good game to like pick up for 10 to 15 minutes and, die halfway through my run and get some levels. Like, really enjoying just kind of popping in and out.
Where are you playing it right now?
Mostly on PlayStation. I played a little bit the other night on stream before I got off, but mostly on PlayStation. And it's nice to sit on the couch too. So
yeah.
I've been playing it when I'm just getting really sleepy at night, and then it's just easy to control. It's not easy to be good at necessarily, especially when there's a lot going on. But generally, it's like you're doing one thing at a time, moving around.
Are you saying you control it one-handed? So it's nice because that's what you're saying.
You already know what time it is. So that, and I checked out Call of the Lamb. I know you guys both have talked very highly of Call of the Lamb, and yeah, it's great. It's amazing. It's super duper cute. I was having fun managing all my little followers. I just plan on being as sadistic as I possibly can, and as rolling with an iron fist. So I want to continue to play it. I feel like I kind of just scratched the surface a little bit. I'm still very early. I'm only a couple hours in, but I'm looking forward to playing that some more. It also has kind of like not only a really good art style, but has a pretty good soundtrack as well that I was kind of vibing to. So Devolver always putting in work. I know they didn't make the game, but they have a good eye, just like Annapurna and other developers that we have good relationships with. So, yeah, but that's been great. That, and I did check out for maybe a little less than an hour on stream Echo Point Nova last night. This is a game that was recommended to me by Dustin. It is one part shooter, one part crack cocaine. I don't know how to describe it. This shit is so fast. It it reminds me a lot of Neon White. It's a shooter on ice, pretty much, and it's insanely flicky, insanely fast paced. Now you can slow down. There's like a hoverboard that you get that makes you go super fast, and you could jump around and bounce off walls and ride walls. But I gotta go full blast all the time, just because that's kind of how I play these games. I gotta be cracked out, or I'm not playing it. So, Echo Point Nova, Sailor in chat says is good. Yeah, I was enjoying what I was playing. I will say last night I was kind of looking for a more casual experience, and that was probably the least casual experience that I've ever played. I literally was sweating. I was literally sweating trying to keep up with what was going on my screen. I was moving so fast around and like flicking around. And at points like if you flick too far down, your character will like be upside down. Like that's the kind of game we're working with here. So yeah, it's really cool. I'm still really early. I could see this game honestly being one of my favorites. I just need to be like, it needs to be a Saturday morning when I just had 4 shots of espresso and nothing else, no breakfast, and then I will absolutely just dig in to this game deep because it seems quality. I don't know that there's much to it other than what I've seen. I'm sure there's a story that doesn't matter as much, but the gameplay of this game is really, really cool. And I advise anyone to check it out. I don't think it's very expensive. I can't say that for certain because
I think it's like $22, something like that.
But really, really fucking awesome. Would advise anybody to check it out who is a fan of shooters and has played stuff like Neon White and really enjoyed that. It's even more fast paced than Neon White. Even more fast paced. So
Sailor in chat is the one who actually told me about Echo Point Nova. And the reason he told me about it is because their previous game, Severed Steel, was on my wish list and it went on sale for like $2. And I saw it was on his wish list as well because we're friends on Steam. And I sent him a message, and then he told me about Echo Point. And so I put it on my wish list and forgot about it. And then Dustin, who of course Brandon is our brother and in our Steam family because we obviously share a household.
Dude, he is my brother. I talk to him more than my brother sometimes.
Yeah, but now it's in our Steam family library, so I don't have to think about that anymore. But nice. I'm glad that's good. I'm glad you're enjoying it.
Yeah.
For me, it's been a weird week. I've played a decent amount of hours of games, but I haven't really played much of a variety. Still continued to play Balatro Mobile, which I finally got my game center to sync up between my iPad and my iPhone, which has been nice. I haven't played like that much, but it's amazing how it took me probably 5 hours on on Balatro the first time I played it, like ever, to really figure out what some strategies were, and it took me forever to win a game. And then when I got on Balatro Mobile, I literally won my first game because I just like knew. I mean, I got good cards. I got lucky cards to begin with too, but I got a little bit of skill build up in there too. So it's great. I just think it's phenomenal. If you have Apple Arcade, you should play it. If you don't have Apple Arcade, it's $10. It's also on Android, I assume, for about the same price or exactly the same price. So please check it out. If you think, I don't like card games, it doesn't matter. It's not really a card game. I mean, it is. But it's not a poker game. It is. But it's not. Just, you'll understand if you do it. World of Warcraft. I've been playing a little more World of Warcraft. Brandon is giving me a thumbs down, even though he notoriously plays the worst games in the entire world. I don't know why that dig was necessary, but been playing a little more of that, and played through Dragonflight, and I'm going to continue. I finished the main campaign, going to do some of the raids and stuff to get up to current level so I can play the new campaign. Here's what I said this last week, and I'm going to reaffirm it. I really like clicking on things and getting different skills and like making my skills work together well. I don't really like the story so far. It's been a long time since I played World of Warcraft, and I never remember the story being a highlight for me. And it's funny because the gameplay is not much, but it just clicks for me somehow. Clicks in my head. And then the last thing is Hunt Showdown. This game's been out a long time. You've probably heard of it or seen it, but I played it a little while back, and I've gotten back into it recently, and I'm hooked, man. I'm hooked all over again, and it's an extraction shooter. For those who don't know, they just did a big revision to it. It is a new engine that they put in. They redid a lot of stuff. They introduced a new map. They changed, of course, a lot of the weapons and added some new different things as well. And it's now called Hunt Showdown 1896 instead of just being called Hunt Showdown. I don't know why they felt the need to change the name, but they did. Maybe they like give it a new life or something. I don't know. But I'm loving it. I'm dying a lot, but that's okay. Like, I'm still having fun. And I'm also winning a fair amount. Slightly less than I'm losing. I'm losing slightly more than I'm winning. But I'm still having a blast with it. So that's been consuming the little bit of time I've had this week for games. I haven't got to explore much outside of it. Brandon, I need to comment. You mentioned streaming a few times there. It got to be the 28th or the 27th, and I was like, Brandon hasn't streamed yet this month. And then, sure enough, the next night,
Sure as shit, motherfucker.
you screwed me.
And I did stream a little bit last night, but honestly, a nap ruined me. I streamed for about an hour last night, which I'm gonna call a success. I don't give a fuck what you say. Fuck you. Fuck you. Fuck you. I'm sorry. That was a little aggressive.
Way aggressive.
I felt like shit. I was literally playing. I switched to 3 different games and nobody was watching, and so I was
In
like,
an hour? No wonder nobody was
yes,
watching.
dude. And that's fine because it was a rough night. It was a rough night, but it was my last night, and so I had to do it. I started playing Echo Point, and then I was like, this is way too fast paced. I am way too tired for this. I switched to Bioshock. I was like, this is a comforting game to me, and I'm at one of the harder parts of the game. And I played and then I just went to Vampire Survivors for like 10 or 15 minutes, and then I just got off. I was done. And it was like a fresh, like I've not played it on PC. So literally I was level fucking 1 starting Vampire Survivors last night. But yeah, it was a tough night. But we're going to do better.
If I knew now if I knew then what I know now about the way you stream, I would have like put some parameters on it.
Dude. I continued playing Red Dead as well, boys. I didn't put that in. I just want to mention I am streaming, and I'm going to say this, boys. I don't want to drag the show on too long. There was a single night last month where I only streamed for like 30 or 40 minutes. But that's the lowest it's been. That's been the lowest it's been, boys. All the other... So if you want to disqualify me, that's fine. I'm the one that chose the hard punishment.
I'm the one that chose the hard punishment instead of the spirit of the law.
Y'all chose the bitch-ass, easy-ass punishments. Dave was a real G last year and picked the Gran Turismo shit.
And he failed like a man.
Exactly. And I will not... I will win like a cheater. A cheating man, a scuzzy man. But I made it, boys. I made it. Don't worry. I'm not gonna do this. This is the second month in a row that I've like skirted by. My life's been like pretty weird lately.
I think it's been more than the second month, but
dude, it has fucking not, bro. I will bring up the Twitch statistics. I will bring up the goddamn Twitch statistics right fucking now.
There's been so many months where it's been like the last week, and you're like, oh, I got to stream twice. I don't know what I'm gonna plan it for.
Bullshit.
In his defense, that counts.
It counts, motherfucker.
It does.
On a technicality, I could play Warzone.
And I'm going to use that technicality if I need to in the future for myself.
All right. Oh, boys.
Don't forget. Support us on
sorry.
Patreon.
I'm sorry, audience.
Patreon.com/handsomephantom. We appreciate you all helping us out there for as little as $1 a month. You can also join us on Discord. handsomephantom.com/Discord. We're going to end the show. Stick around for a few minutes to figure out the show title. Have a good night. We love you, and goodbye.
Goodbye. End it, motherfucker.
Well, we usually figure out the title on stream.
Should
I'm
call
kidding.
this podcast could have been an email.
Yeah, true. Or hospice soft.
No, that's mean.
I'm glad we both agreed on that at the same time.
Nintendo Black.
All right, Brandon.
Yeah,
According to TwitchTracker.com,
Oh my god.
dude, you are a menace. Fuck you.
it's so funny. It's
Pull
wrong,
up the
but
stats. Pull up the
it's wrong.
stats.
It says you were only active 1 day in the last 30, even though I know that's wrong.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
That's right, bro.
Yeah.
That's right.
And 4 in the last 3 months. That's definitely wrong.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right. You're saying
No,
you failed.
no. I did. Yeah, I'm
I gotta be
agreeing with
honest. If today was December 31st, or if today was January 1st, I would probably have to fail myself for one of my resolutions. If I'm being honest with myself,
wife
and that's
one?
I don't think I've played video games with my wife enough.
Hmm.
So I gotta.
Appreciate you being honest.
you. Dude, I am being honest. Mine are categorically more difficult.
Sure.
I'm giving myself a little bit of fucking credit here.
I
bud.
will be
You
hard
really
on
think
you though.
streaming is harder than hanging out with than playing video games with my kids? I don't think so.
But
It's mayhem.
Brandon, if it comes down
I'll play
to it,
video games with your kids.
I will be hard on you for Red Dead Redemption because you got so many reminders throughout the year, and you just.
I'm almost
Nah,
done, dude. I'm
nah.
almost done.
Yeah, but you're not done. I'm just saying
I'm
that
gonna be
I'll work
done.
with you in some, and I'll defend you. But you got to
Oh.
come
How
on,
far
man.
are you,
You got to
Brandon?
meet me halfway, brother.
Arthur is
Well,
Unalived.
a cowboy.
It's been long enough.
No, dude. The sanctity of the game. I will not break it. I will not break it. It's too emotional. I
you
will
tell us
say,
after we end.
yeah. I'm not gonna keep rambling, but it's very hard to continue through this game because it's so fucking heavy right now. Like it's actually like I feel like I'm trudging through it in a beautiful way, but
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yes, Ed is correct. Edwin, you should never spoil anything about a game ever for someone who doesn't want it spoiled.
dude, Ed would never do that. Ed would never do that. Right, Ed?
We're ending the stream before you can respond. Goodbye.